Okay, welcome back. And a bit of visual imagery here for you. Let's pretend, and here is my bow, and oh, amazing. 3 gold arrows, just Olympic standard visual imagery. Why am I doing this? Okay, the idea behind it is that is my objective. That is my goal. There was something I wanted to achieve there. I wanted to get 3 golds. Think for yourself, what goals, objectives, things that you want to achieve in your personal life first. Are you trying to win the premiership flag for a sporting team? Are you trying to get a great score in your next SAC? Are you trying to achieve a certain ATAR score? Do you have a certain dream, objective, goal in mind for a future career? All of these are very personal objectives for each of us, okay? So when we're talking about objectives, we're talking about goals, desired outcomes, something we want to achieve. Now, this topic here is going to be about business objectives. What does a business want to achieve? What are the outcomes that they are looking to try and get out of it? Okay, so this whole key understanding, key dot point, knowledge point is all about business objectives. What do the businesses want to achieve? So these series of slides are going to be about business objectives. So Unit 3, Outcome 1, Business Foundations, Business Objectives. So straight from the study design, we're going to look at business objectives, including to make a profit, to increase market share, and to improve efficiency. So let's get straight into it. So let's take the first objective. By far the most contemporary, relevant, probably the first one, because it's within the definition of what is a business. So making a profit is what all of these businesses are about. Okay, so let's now draw apart that in a little bit more detail. What is the objective of making a profit? So the key takeaway here, a little bit technical. Some of you may do accounting and you'll know way more than this, okay? But just let's keep it simple. This is all we need for the business management study design. So profit is the surplus. What's left over? Okay, the surplus remaining after total costs, fancy word expenses. So after the total expenses are deducted from the total revenue. Again, a fancy word for things like earnings. What are we earning? What are we having to spend? What are we left with? Okay, so the surplus after total expenses are deducted from total revenue. Okay, this is the basis on which tax is calculated, dividends are paid, and all sorts of other things. Okay, what are we going to do with this money afterwards? Keep it simple though. Profit, surplus of total expenses taken away from my total revenue. So let's draw that out in a bit more example in my classic little example about Mr. Warden's terrible hairdressing salon. Why would you possibly come to my salon? Okay, with hair like this, what's the little left of it? And if I dip too much, you probably can see even less of it. At my hairdressing salon, what is going on? Well, I'm performing haircuts. Okay, so as you come into my salon, I'm charging you, and over the course of the week, I earn $1,000 from people paying by credit card, by cash, to come in to my retail outlet to have a haircut. Okay, so this is my revenue. So the technical term is sales revenue. This is what I'm earning from doing those haircuts. However, that's not what I walk away with, is it? Oh, no. There's other things, Mr. Warden, that goes on with the business, okay? So I've also got to pay my staff their wages for doing those haircuts. I've also got to pay for the scissors, the gel, the shampoo, etc. So there are certain costs of the goods I'm selling. So when I deduct that from the revenue, and they cost $400, big surprise, 1,000 minus 400 leaves me with $600. So my initial sales revenue, my earnings of 1,000, I've really only got 600, which is my gross profit. Gross, as in big. Okay, so gross profit, my big profit is 600. But that is not all my expenses. Remember, this was the total expenses, all of them. Okay, forgotten about that stuff, all that extra stuff. The rent, the heating, the bills, the lighting, all of those things are additional expenses. So I've got to include those as well. So now they cost me $700. So if I had $600 gross profit, take away $700, I'm now out of pocket by $100. I have made a loss, okay? So this final bit here is what's called the net profit. Net is the final bit, what's left over after all of it. So here, I've gone from being a surplus, a profit, to a loss business. And you'll see this in accounting. If you ever do accounting reports, you'll see them often in brackets. So here's our bracket saying, I've actually made a loss. Hopefully, I'm making a profit. So why is this important? Because here is the revenue at the top. I take away my expenses and all of them, all the expenses I have from my revenue, and I'm left with hopefully a profit, or in this case, a loss. Okay, so is this the most important thing? I started off by doing this one first out of all the objectives. Well, sort of it is, okay, because it is the definition of the word business. It's about making a profit. But don't forget that some of our business types also include the social need or the social cause, or it's run by the government. And we talked about the idea of consideration of the community's interests as well as the profit. So it's not always the number one. It's often up there as being very important, but it could be within the realm of the other objectives as well. Who is this important for? So we think of our stakeholders, and we're going to get to that word later. Okay, so remember that word, stakeholders. They're people who are interested in what's going on in the business. Who's interested by the profit? Well, clearly the owners are going to be interested, because if you've invested some money in the business, you hopefully want to make some money, okay? But also probably other people are important, okay? Because if we don't make a profit, maybe this business isn't going to run. I've made a loss here. Maybe I'm going to have to lay off some of my staff. So employees might be interested, okay? If this eventually got onto the share market, and it was a bigger business, my shareholders might be worried about this. So profit is a big objective and important to a number of groups within our business. Our next question here, just a bit of a deeper dive. Okay, is 1 million good or 1,000 good as a profit figure? Well, if it's Mr. Wharton's hairdressing salon, I'll probably be happy with 1,000. I'm going to be really happy with 1 million. But if I'm Qantas and I've invested millions stroke billions of dollars in the business, then 1,000 is terrible, and arguably 1 million isn't much better either. So we need to be thinking about it in terms of the scale. How much money have we put into the business? How big are our expenses? Is that profit relatively good compared to all of that investment? So it's a bigger concept than that we originally thought. We obviously thought making a profit, that's how much money we got. No, we need to draw that out. So a deeper dive. It's the revenue minus the total expenses, and it's the surplus. And it's a big objective for many businesses. Our next business objective is increasing market share. Okay, so our key takeaway from this is the proportion of that industry sales that you control. It is a sign of competitive advantage. So let's put that in a visual way, okay? So let's have here, we have our little pie. Think of it like an apple pie. Here is our apple pie, okay? As we eat the apple pie, we want a bigger slice because we want to eat that apple pie, okay? But if you think of it in a business sense, this is the total sales in that industry. So let's say we're going to be taking the soft drinks market. In here, we might have Coca-Cola, we might have Fanta, we might have other drinks, Pepsi would be in there, okay? If we take the total industry sales and we work out how much gets divided to each of those players, how much goes to Coca-Cola? Oh, they've got 30% sales. How much does Fanta have? Let's say they have 40%. Just making these figures up, but you get the idea. 70, what are we left with? 30, we'll go 15 and 15. Okay, so we have that apple pie, so to speak, or the pie divided between those groups. We're getting a total industry sales and how much each player has within that. Now, the next question then is why is having an objective of increasing our market share important? Why is it important to go, okay, right now I've only got 15%. I want some more sales in that industry. How do I make sure that I grow, and how am I tracking that in terms of the background? Well, clearly it's going to give us a competitive advantage, okay? The big companies, okay, because we're buying more of that, then clearly as customers, we're reinforcing that. So we're buying more of those products, and so therefore we're out there Along comes it marketing, along comes that logos, along comes that all sorts of advertising campaigns, word of mouth. I've got one of those items. Oh, maybe you should have one as well. So market share makes you a major player, and therefore you can exert more influence to get hopefully more sales in the future. Better reputation, better awareness. Okay. So how do we increase market share and become a more dominant player in that industry? Well, obviously we want to try and generate more sales. So all of these are trying to increase sales. Maybe we lower costs to make our products more attractive than someone else's. So they buy ours, more sales in that industry, we have more market share. Okay. We maybe lower the prices so people are more excited by that. Maybe we make our quality better. Oh, I want to buy that product because it's a better quality product. More sales, more percentage market share is generated. Maybe it's through reputation or advertising, okay? Or something bad happens to a competitor and people go, I don't want to buy that one. I'll buy yours instead. So market share is all about the proportion of sales that your business has as a percentage of that total industry. Now, here's a contemporary example of how we can see how that has evolved over time and why it's important. Here we have Australian supermarkets. This is way back in 2013, and you can see the slice of the pie, the percentage of sales that each of these supermarkets has of the total supermarkets. So when you go out to a supermarket and buy your retail foods for the week, where are you buying it from? Okay. So we have Woolworths, okay, 43%, the dominant player. You can see they're right up there, big numbers, and controls a lot of the market. Most of you are out there buying from Woolworths. The second one then, Coles, 37%. So between the two of those, 80% is controlled by the big two players. The rest is divided up between IGA, a little Aldi that's just emerged on the market, and other ones in your local area. So you can see the market share is set then. And you go, okay, those are the two big players. Well, Aldi comes in and starts to emerge as a new force in the supermarket industry. They're now offering those cheap specials, okay? It's that middle aisle we can go through and walk away with a jackhammer, a fridge, and a pair of ski boots, okay? It's all of those extra things that makes it a little bit different, okay? Lowest prices, okay, can be found there. There's no name brands. It's really quick to get through. It's becoming an emerging force. And suddenly you see more of us going to Aldi to buy some of our products than we did before. So if we see now, a few years' time, 7 years later, big surprise, Aldi has grown. It's now got 12% of that market from originally 3%. So more of us are buying from Aldi. It's getting a bigger presence. It's got a bigger percentage of the pie. And by squeezing more people going there, then clearly that's going to be squeezing on the other two. We now see Woolworths down from 43% to 32%, 32.9%. And Coles down from 37% to 26%. So they're getting squeezed by this new emerging force. Let alone the fresh food stores, there's also a player in there. So it's a much more competitive market now. And now these businesses have to fight for our allegiance as customers. Who's going to buy from them? More investment in marketing, more investment in sales. You've got to compete with Aldi, who's a lower cost operator and is offering lower prices, and they needed to respond. So hopefully you can see why it's really important to try and be increasing market share and what happens when you lose market share. Our next objective is improving efficiency. So efficiency, how well a business uses resources to achieve the objectives. Now, often I find that students get confused with these words, efficiency and effectiveness, and you'll hear the other one in a minute as well. But if you think of it, right now, are you being efficient with your time? If your mum, dad, or your teacher walks up to you in the class or at home while you're doing your homework, are you being efficient with your time? Are you using your time or your resources effectively, okay? Are we using our things to achieve objectives? Or am I procrastinating and I'm wasting time and I'm just got my earphones on and listening to music? Efficient in your studies is a good way of thinking it. Are you using your time efficiently, okay? And your time, in this case, is your resource. Now, there's more things that a business has than just time or resource. So a business has time, but it also has resources, which are the raw materials. We have labor. We have machinery. So are we using these efficiently? Are we getting the best use of them to achieve the objectives? So what happens if we're not being efficient? What happens if we're wasting time, if we're wasting raw materials, if we're wasting labor, okay? Well, if we waste raw materials and time, okay, then we're going to end up paying more for labor. This means that our costs go up. So if we've got raw materials all over the place, we're making bread or something like that, and we've got yeast and flour, and we're wasting it around, and we're not using our resource well, that's going to make our costs go up, okay? If we're lounging around not using our time as labor while we're making the bread, well, then it's going to cost us a lot more for wages. Again, costs go up. If the costs go up, then we probably have to match that with our prices. Our prices go up. If our prices go up, then we're less competitive than anybody else who's selling bread. And if we do all of that, we sell less. So this becomes a really important objective, to be efficient about how we use our resources, whether it be time, raw materials, labor, machinery. Are we using our resources well to achieve our objectives? Now, there's an interesting link here between the words efficiency, how well we're using our resources to achieve our objectives, and productivity, which we're going to get to a little bit later on. So I'm just flagging this one now. So let's play this one out. Efficiency, first of all, how well are we using these resources to achieve the goal, our objective? And if we think of it, productivity is that ratio of outputs compared to inputs. Better with a story. So here's our little funky little baker making bread. We talked a bit about bread before. Here he is, okay? He's trying to make some bread. If he makes one loaf of bread in 1 hour, then he's being fairly productive, okay? He's made one loaf of bread in 1 hour. However, if he now makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 loaves of bread in 1 hour, then he's being more productive, okay? So he's being efficient because he's using his time as resource better. He's being efficient because he's using his labor resource better. He's being efficient because he's using the machinery and the raw materials and everything else that goes better to achieve. But he's also being more productive. He's making more. Why is that important? Well, if we increase our productivity, then we increase our production. We've made 1, now we're making 12. How is that beneficial? Well, if we increase our production to 12, then we've got now hopefully more to sell. If we've got more to sell, then hopefully we'll make more profit. But there's another angle to here, okay? If we're getting more productive, then our labor costs, we talked about being like efficiency and how we're using our resources, our labor costs is now getting spread over 12 loaves of bread. So if we were paying him like sort of $100 an hour, then originally that loaf of bread's going to cost us $100. Now we've got that cost spread over 12 loaves. It's going to be much cheaper per loaf to pay him as labor. So we've got to reduce cost per unit. How's that going to help us? Well, then hopefully we've got cheaper prices. Our costs have gone down, we can lower our prices. Now, both of those together are going to lever off and give us more sales and more profit. So this productivity is linked to efficiency and is linked to another goal here of the objective of trying to make more profits. So all of this becomes really important in how we become like a competitive advantage, how we can achieve our goals of the business and achieve what we want to set out to achieve. Okay, here we have a nice summary concept map of the business objectives. So far we've covered to make a profit, to increase market share, and to improve efficiency. In our next lesson, we're then going to look at the other objectives to fulfill a market need, fulfill a social need, shareholder expectations, and to improve effectiveness. Look forward to seeing you then. Welcome to part 2 of business objectives. In this lesson, we're going to look at the study design dot point about business objectives. We've already covered profit, increasing market share, and improve efficiency. And in this lesson, we're going to look at to improve effectiveness, to fulfill a market need, to fulfill a social need, and to meet shareholder expectations. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, another word that often throws students out, and they get these two confused between the two, effectiveness. Okay, so we had efficiency. How well are we using our resources to achieve our objectives? Effectiveness. Are you being effective? Are you achieving your goals? So in this case, if you hear the word, are you being effective in your studies? Okay, if your teacher comes up to you, are you being effective right now? Are you achieving your goals? Are you getting the grade on that assessment task that you wanted to achieve? So this is the objective that you may have wanted to set out to achieve. In a personal sense, that was the goal. But for a business sense, we have a whole range of objectives. We might want to make more profit. We've talked about increasing market share. We've got some more here to come, market need, but we could also have other business objectives that we haven't even covered yet. We maybe want to reduce waste in the production process. We're seeing a whole bunch of stuff wasted on the floor. Let's get rid of that. Or maybe we've got bigger value objective about using more sustainable energy in our production process. So we could have a whole range of objectives. Effectiveness is whether we're achieving them or not. Are we achieving that goal? Okay, that arrow, are we achieving what we set out to achieve? What data is telling us, are we making more, better profits, better achievement of the ultimate goal, the objective we want to achieve? So effectiveness, are we achieving the objectives? Another business objective that often comes along is fulfilling market needs. So what do we mean by the market? Okay, well, the market need is what the customers want. Okay, if you go to a market, who's there? Well, it's producers selling things to customers. If you walk around a fresh food market or Queen Victoria market, occasionally you see that, it's the customers are coming along. And if we're meeting what they want, then they're happy. So to fulfill a market need is meeting the demands of our customers. So a pretty obvious one, really. Okay, how would you measure that? Well, if you think about it, if a customer's happy and their needs are being met, they're going to be buying more of your product. So if you see your sales numbers increase over time, then you'll be saying, okay, market needs to be met. Another way of looking at it is you could be looking at the market share figures. If your percentage and proportion of that industry's sales are going more to you, then clearly customers are happy. Customers are happy with Aldi, more people are coming, their market share is increasing. So there's a numbers of ways we can see if it's occurring. And equally, if it hasn't been met and we're not meeting what the customer needs, we'd expect the opposite. We'd expect our sales to go down. We'd expect our market share to go down. And we might be expecting our profits to go down as well. So fulfilling the market needs can come out of a key objective. Now, we can also, in this picture here, see how needs can change over time. And as a business, we need to respond to that. Let's pretend we're making dry gin, okay? So we have an alcoholic beverage being made by our business. Well, we have our stills to produce that, and we have our warehouse, and it's all going along. Now, suddenly along comes COVID, and suddenly people are desperate for sanitizer, hand sanitizers, and the gels. Well, what you may have observed in the media or even at first hand from certain businesses is a lot of businesses change their production. They can still use these stills, but they're now making the sanitizer gel from the alcoholic component behind it. Okay, so we've changed our business model effectively to meet those market needs. So it becomes a really big objective for businesses, and this became a big source of profits for many of these businesses in that area. Another objective, fulfilling a social need. And what do we mean by social need? Okay, we're producing goods or services or offering something that's broader than just for our customers, which is our market, but now this is for the society in general or the world in general and making a better place. So maybe our business has an objective to do something good, something nice, offering things not only to our customers, but now to society in general. Now, I always think a classic example, and I live on the Mornington Peninsula, is I see these Westpac helicopters flying across during the summer, going out there and rescuing people in distress. But what I look at more closely is Westpac. Isn't Westpac a bank? Are they naturally trained to be rescue helicopter people? So this for me is a great example of a business which performs or fulfills a social need in addition to their other objectives they have. Each year, more than 80,000 missions have been performed. 300 rescue professionals involved, so it's a massive operation. There are 13 bases, 15 aircraft, 1 rescue boat across Australia. Okay, but it's more than what their prime business is. Their prime business, Westpac, is a bank. So we'd be thinking they'd be operating bank operations and stores and online banking and all those facilities. Where does this come involved? Well, partly it's clearly a social need. That there's a need for a rescue helicopter service, and Westpac have chosen to be involved in that and perform that role and sponsor it and support it, and the financial background behind it is amazing, okay? But why would they do that when they're really just a bank? Well, there's loads of angles. One is the objective of fulfilling the social need. Hopefully they feel pride in being able to perform this role in society. But additionally, whenever you see that Westpac helicopter flying across rescuing people, the imagery goes off, Westpac were involved. That's a great reputation to have, that you care about society broader than your own personal interests. Another objective, and we're going to dive in deeper and work out who this applies to in a minute, but meeting shareholder expectations is a key business objective. So let's pull it back again. Shareholders, we've heard that word before. These are the owners of the business. They have an interest in the performance of the business and are looking for this word, this return on investment. We'll dive deeper into this. So let's pretend, first of all, that I have my Mr. Wharton's hairdressing salon going along nicely. We talked about that as a business, okay? But I've got to a certain stage where I've run it, and then I've got my brother involved, and so we're now a partnership between the two of us, but we're really restricted by the amount of money we can invest in this business to grow it further. We think it's got potential. It can go global, okay? So I'm limited in the amount of money I can get from investment. Been thinking about going to the bank, but the interest rates are moving up. I'm a bit concerned about all that, okay? So what's another way I can get money to invest into my business? I can float it on the stock exchange. So we're going to hear a bit of terminology here, but I'm going to use that to scaffold to see why fulfilling shareholder expectations is so important. So what do I do first of all? I've got this idea. It should go on the stock exchange, okay? So I create a little prospectus. I create a little booklet. I advocate all the information about the business, and I offer it out there for anyone in the general public to buy a share in my business, okay? So that process is called floating on the market, the business, okay? I'm floating it out there, seeing whether people want to buy. That first initial offer. As you buy some of my shares in that business, I get the investment. And really, this is the only time at which me, as the original owner, gets that money in from you who have bought the share, okay? So as you buy that share on the primary market, I now have some money. You now have a share and you're a shareholder of my business. And I now have the capital to go on and expand my business and build it. From now on, the only way that you can pass on that ownership of the share is on what's called the secondary market. The Australian Securities Exchange, you can sell it to somebody else who might be interested. Okay, those shares are going pretty well. I'd like to buy some of those, please, or I'd like to trade some of the ones I've got right now. I'm no longer involved in that whole process. You are in the secondary market, and you're moving it between different shareholders. Sounds complicated, but hopefully you start to see that the pattern of what's going on here. Now, this is where it becomes really important. So, if you're a shareholder, what's in it for you? And why are you doing this whole process? Okay, so why have you invested money in my Mr. Wharton's hairdressing salon? Well, hopefully you're doing it because if you give me $1,000 to buy a share in the business, you're hoping for your return on your investment of $1,000 to be bigger than that $1,000. You want to make some money. So return on your investment is you invested some money buying some shares in the first place in my business. You would like a better end result ultimately than the $1,000 you invested in. That's your return on investment. So how are you going to get money from this investment? One of the ways, it's called dividends. By you being a shareholder in my business, if I make any profits, one of the options I have is to divide those profits between all the shareholders. Way of keeping you happy. Think of it like a little bonus, okay, for having faith in me and faith in this business. So if I make a profit, I can choose as a director of the business to reinvest it into the shareholders, okay? Now, why would I choose to do that, okay? Well, one, you might argue that the drive of the business as director is to see it sort of improve and to thank you for doing that. Equally, though, and we'll get to this more, is that you have voting rights. As an owner, as a shareholder, you have voting rights in the annual general meeting in proportion to the amount of shares you have. So if you think I'm doing a bad job with my business, okay, and I'm managing on your behalf, then you can effectively sack me, okay, or replace me with someone else. So part of it is I've got a self-interest to keep you happy. and a dividend is part of that whole process. But also, ultimately, you are the owner, okay? So if we do make additional profits, you should be the group that gets the benefit of them. The other way that you're going to make some money is what's called capital gain. The idea being is that one day you want to sell your share to somebody else for more than the $1,000 that was invested in it. Now, what is that $1,000 worth? Well, it's a percentage of what the total business is valued at. Now, clearly, if times are good and we expect the business to get more wealthy in the future, then it's worth more money, and therefore the value of the shares appreciates. So we see these graphs occur where we're seeing share values go up, and that might mean that if I bought it here and I can sell it at a higher price of $2,000, then I'm pretty happy. So capital gain is that component of it. It's about you buying the share at a certain price and it appreciating in value, and you selling at that, and that's the capital you've gained. Lots of information to put together. But why is this important? Because if you don't keep them happy, they can turn on you in this regard. Yes? So we have meeting shareholder expectations is important as a business to keep them happy because they're the owners. Now, the important thing is to then think about, well, who are the owners and where do we see shareholders? Well, we really only see them in two places. We see them in public listed companies, PLCs, and we also see them in private limited companies, where the shares are limited to the people that we're offering them to, if not for the general public. So these two groups are important to bear in mind when we're meeting shareholder expectations. Okay, so let's see a worked example of how we can put all that together about business objectives. Here we have a past VCAR question. So you can see how they're often scaffolded up. There'll be the case study first of all, and the question comes along. As I advise you always along, grab a pen or a marker and then highlight what's being required. First of all, we're being required to describe. So we're not defining it, we're not identifying it, we're describing. We're talking about some of the features of a business objective. An important word here is if you can express it other than to make a profit, which is obviously one of the obvious ones. Okay? And it's linked to a childcare centre business. So if we're thinking about the marketing grid, one, we've got to pick an objective, so we've got to identify one, but we've got to describe it. Okay, we're looking for the features and we're looking for the details, and we've got to make sure that it's applied to the childcare centre. Okay, so we're adding that bit behind it. So we've got to make sure we've got the connection. So this will be a way of scaffolding up. Okay, we can't use profit. So the childcare centre would have the objective to fulfil a market need. There's one of our objectives. We need to describe it. So, got to tell the assessor what that objective is, which is a gap in the industry that has not been satisfied by existing businesses. There's a gap, customers need something, we're going to fulfill that. And now we're going to link it to the childcare centre business. The childcare centre provides childcare in the local area and meet the demand for high quality, which has not been previously fulfilled. Again, we've just scaffolded the answer in the way that it's been set out to us by the assessors and make sure that's applicable. As you can see in the report here, this is exactly what we've done. We haven't used profit, which was banned from us from this question here, was a constraint, and we've used one of the other ones. Why don't we use shareholder expectations? Well, remember, this is talking about here a business which was a partnership. Now, partnerships don't have shareholders, so we couldn't use that one, okay? But the rest of them are at play for us to use. Hope that helps. And here we have a nice concept map summarizing all of the content we've covered so far about business objectives. We've now covered all of them. So to make a profit, to increase market share, fulfill a market need, fulfill a social need, shareholder expectations, to improve efficiency, and to improve effectiveness. So hopefully you had a good grasp on those. Add extra details if you wanted to this concept map to flesh out your knowledge. And in our next lesson, we're going to move on to stakeholders. So look forward to seeing you then.